Good morning and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jennifer and I like to do sewing content. For the next few days, I'm going to be working on Elizabeth Taylor's dress. I was scrolling on Pinterest, it's where I get most of my inspiration, but I saw this photo of Elizabeth Taylor wearing that green dress. I thought she looked gorgeous and I wanted to do more research to see where she wore it, but I saw that the photo was taken on set and she was wearing it for the film Suddenly Last Summer. But I recommend to skip forward if you want to avoid any spoilers or triggering topics. I think it covers cannibalism, incest, homophobia, and lobotomies, mental health issues. So if you like to skip all of that, or if you're eating, put the food down. No. But yeah, I would skip to this timestamp. I'll give you some time. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the film, but this film was a cinematic adaptation that was released in 1959, and it was based on a play that was written by Tennessee Williams. The film starred Katharine Hepburn, Montgomery Clift, and Elizabeth Taylor. The first scene of the movie, we are introduced to Dr. C, and he's performing a lobotomy on a patient. Aunt Vi offers to do a donation, but only if they perform a lobotomy on her niece, Catherine. She also explained how her son Sebastian had passed away in a vacation that he went to with her niece, Catherine. Catherine witnessed the death and she has been apparently spreading rumors and lies. And the one scene that really sent shivers down my spine was when Catherine and Dr. C walk down the hospital and go into this sort of waiting room and Aunt Vi is there. This is when all the dots finally are connected and Catherine sort of has a duel with Aunt Vi and they're arguing back and forth, explaining what happened, and Catherine is sort of opening up about what truly happened to Sebastian and how he isn't the kind of person that Aunt Vi has built him up to be. You start to realize that Sebastian is using his family members to lure men. He would take advantage of them by paying them for favors, but this would in turn bite him in the end, quite literally and figuratively. He's abusing his power of money and taking along Catherine for his last joyride because that's what they want. They want to just experience joy at the cost of others. And so at the very end, Catherine is able to tell the story of what happened at Cabeza de Lobo and how Sebastian was murdered. And for this scene, Catherine is leaned back in a recliner and all you see is her head, but her face, you can see the horror. Like, she just knocked it out the park. This is when I saw the snapshot of Elizabeth Taylor, and she's wearing that green dress. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, do I still want to make this green dress? What am I doing? Like, it's a really gorgeous dress, and I think costume design is important in films. And I understand that it's a very frivolous aspect to this whole film, but I really enjoyed the costumes. Even what Aunt Vi was wearing, she had a little feather halo effect here. I thought that was a nice touch. And Sebastian with his super white crisp suit, like that was just showing his character and how that is more important to him than his own family member. And the censorship back then, they wouldn't allow homosexuality on the screen unless something like that in the very end, which he got punished, was deemed okay, but that is very frustrating. And so it was released in 1959. There's not much diversity or representation, and whenever there is, it's not done tastefully at all. But yeah, that's my review of the movie. I may have missed something or wasn't very eloquent in my words, but I tried my best. I think I'm gonna take a break and go get a matcha or something. I need a palate cleanser. Hello, I just got back from getting my matcha and almond croissant. It was delicious, but now I'm going to explain what my plan is for making this outfit. I forgot to mention that the costume designer for this film was Oliver Messel, and there's not much information online about how they created this outfit, what fabrics were used, and stuff like that. So I'm basically left to assume what fabrics are used and stuff, but I tried my best. So if you look at Elizabeth Taylor's outfit, she's wearing a scarf, and I really want to make it. To me, it looked like a silk chiffon. It was very flowy and see-through. So I looked up silk chiffon fabric and I found one that I think is perfect. It's from the shop the tin thimble, and they have other silk chiffons that I think are really pretty, but they only had a yard left of this pink fabric. I'm about to show you it. So this is the fabric. I have to be careful, it's already fraying a lot, but that's the nature of silk chiffon. So I will put this aside now, but yeah, it's really pretty. Another design element is that Elizabeth Taylor's wearing a fabric belt. I bought this fabric kit. It's easy belt and buckle kit, and I got it on eBay. I will link the seller down below as well. They had other sewing notions that were from the 50s, 60s era. I'm really excited to make this. I didn't know what size to get because there was like 3-inch, 1-inch. It went with 2.5 inches. I think with the proportions it looks good, but you'll see it when I make it. And this, my chair keeps creaking. I'm not farting, okay? I need to check my chair out, but I've been too lazy and I don't know how to fix it. And then for the dress that Elizabeth Taylor is wearing, it looks to be like a forest green color. I found this on Etsy. It's 100% linen and it's really beautiful. I got 5 yards of it. It seems like very good quality. And I've never worked with linen before because it's very expensive, and I was grateful that my family gave me some birthday money, so they said go buy some fabric, we already know you. I already serged the edges with my serger and I hand washed it. It said like lukewarm water, leave it in the tub for 10 minutes and then rinse it out, and then I air dried it outside. I have a clothing line that I hung up myself. For the dress itself, there are a lot of design elements. I won't get too into depth with it because I will explain it more thoroughly when I'm actually working on it. And I want to show y'all something. 1 minute, please. So I got this book and it's Clothing Construction by Mansfield, and it was written for students, but this book has a lot of knowledge and 50s sewing techniques that I think will be very helpful for creating this dress. I already took notes about what I want to implement, but I would say I'm like a beginner, intermediate sewist. I am not too picky about what I'm going to do, but I care because I spend a lot of money and time on these garments. I want it to come out somewhat good. And historical accuracy isn't like the top of my list. It's okay if it's not super accurate. Like, I just find joy in learning these techniques so that I can be more well equipped when I'm sewing. I am constantly learning and I'm not perfect. And I think if I got this book back then when I was first starting, I would probably be even more intimidated to begin my sewing journey. But do what you want with what you can with your sewing journey. Like, everyone is different and it's personal to you. Everyone can use whatever techniques they want. It's not that serious. I'm excited to still learn how they made things because I have been struggling with these vintage patterns. This has already cleared up a lot of the things that they were saying on these patterns, so pretty good resource. I want to find more books because, again, like the internet, it's kind of hard to find things sometimes, and then there's always like an algorithm being fed to you. But I'm trying my best here. I'm just not overthinking it, but thinking about it still. So for the project itself, I think I'm going to start on the scarf. I feel more comfortable with the scarf because, I don't know honestly, because even silk chiffon is hard to work with. It's very finicky. But I'm not ready to work on the belt. I'm scared of the metal and I'm reading the chapter on belts. And I'm not ready to work on the dress yet. I'm still reading a lot on here. Like, I already marked like 5 pages on dress construction. And I am self-drafting this dress, so I still have to analyze the pattern and try my best, but yeah, kind of intimidating. I'm just taking it step by step, you know? When I have a problem, I'll get there when I get there. This is a new addition to my sewing space. If you're new here, I used to have a rolling cart. It was small and things kept falling, like my pins, which is really annoying to pick up. But I decided to get this shelving unit from IKEA. Also, I'm gonna listen to some ELO while I'm sewing. I want to show you the cover inside. Hold on. It's freaking epic. So this is the cover and the inside. It's like a spaceship. You see the little people with their outfits. Like, I love the art sometimes that are on these records. I feel like that's the fun part of it. I love ELO. They're one of my top favorite bands. I feel like the music just makes me want to cry, but also dance and be happy, but amazing. Okay, so I am gonna actually get started with this project. Let's go to the sewing machine. So I'm going to refer to my manual. If you are still intimidated to work with your machines or stuff, I really recommend looking at the manual because this explains everything. It at least gives you like a starting point on what to do, and then you can mess with the tension and stuff afterwards. But yeah, let's look at this manual. So this section mainly explains how to do different stitches. I'm going to focus on the 3-thread rolled hem. I struggle at saying 3. When I was little, I used to say tree and I got bullied. I don't know why, but I did. And in class, even the teacher was bullying me, but I vividly remember we were counting up to 10 and we were all saying 1, 2, and then everyone looked at me and didn't say the word 3. And I was like, tree! And everyone started laughing. I just broke into tears, but anyways, I'm doing a 3-thread rolled hem. Jeez. It's because Spanish is my first language, okay? I want to show you the scarf itself before I do sew it. I wish I could have bought a little bit more, but it really is just enough to get me by. Let me back up. So this is it. Like, it's just thick enough too. Like, what are the odds? So here I'm drafting a pattern for the scarf. The scarf on Elizabeth was flowy, so I decided to make this pattern with a pointed end. This pattern was 10.5 inches in width for reference. Then I cut it out. And then I ironed the fabric. I pinned the pattern onto the fabric and followed that with a rotary cutter. I also cut along the line until I was met with the other edge, and then I mirrored the other end. It's like an isosceles trapezoid. Did I look up that shape? Yes, I did, and I'm not proud of it, but I don't remember the shapes from like middle school. And then I serged the edges. After serging the scarf, I just snipped the edges off and then I was done. Good morning, it's the next day, and yesterday I worked on the scarf. I finished it up and I'm going to show you in a moment. I just need to tie it in my hair, but it came out really nice, so let me go get it. So this is the scarf. I don't know how to tie it, but this is how she sort of had it on the side here, but I think it came out really pretty. So I will go into more detail about it at the very end because I'll do a review of all the things that I made, but so far we're doing pretty good. So the next thing I have to work on is the fabric belt. I have all the pieces right here, and I've never made a fabric belt before, so I'm a little bit nervous, but for now let's go ahead and get started with making this belt. For the belt, I cut off 6 inches more than my waist measurement. Then I made the end flat and rounded the edges. Next, I ironed the fabric. I cut out the fabric following the measurements on screen in case you'd like to screenshot. I serged off the edges that weren't on the selvage. And I ironed the sides lengthwise inward using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then I sewed a straight stitch with wrong sides facing each other but along opposite ends, if that makes sense. I hope it's more clear in the video. So basically, I folded the stabilizer in and enclosed it with fabric. Here, I'm pinning the edges down so I can sew it later. The rounded end was difficult to pin, but with a little shimmying, I was able to get it to lay flat. Then I used a whip stitch around the edges of the belt. Now it's time for the buckle. First, I traced the original buckle adhesive piece that came with the kit and used it as a template. I'm tracing it onto lightweight stabilizer. I'm replacing the original adhesive template because since it's really old, it's not sticky anymore. And so I'm cutting out the template using the lines that I drew. Then I am tracing the fabric. And I'm doing the same thing, just cutting this piece out. I mark little X's to indicate the wrong side of the fabric. Here I'm going to iron on the stabilizer onto the wrong side of the fabric. After that, I put a layer of super glue on the outside of the front part of the buckle. Here you can barely see, but I'm adding a dab of glue to the inside of the buckle and then quickly folding in the fabric and then clipping it down. Once it dried, I placed the back part of the buckle inside. Then I tapped it into place with my espresso maker. Yeah, we don't have a mallet. I will get one someday, and I always forget to buy it. You okay? What's wrong? You choking, mama? Oh no, not the belly rub. Okay, belly rub time. Were you just joking? Were you joking? Once that was in place, I added the prong that goes on the bar in the middle. I poked a hole for the prong in the belt, and I sewed this eyelet. I should have used embroidery thread, but your girl is already spending too much. This did the trick. Then I inserted the prong from the wrong side of the fabric. I folded the end inside and hand sewed it. I would have used my machine, but the buckle was in the way and this was a tight space. I couldn't get it under the presser foot, but I did use a plastic thimble to protect my finger. Then I made a hole for my waist measurement. And I hammered some metal eyelets into the hole that I made, and the belt was finished. Good morning, it's the next day, and yesterday I finished making the belt. Here it is, and I think it looks really pretty, but I'll go into depth at the very end. And so for today, I'm finally going to work on the dress. I'm nervous, but very excited. I want to just get my hands on it and start working with this linen, but before I do that, I have to do a mock-up and get everything situated. I'm going to show you an image that I drew of the dress. It's not very good, don't judge me, but I tried to analyze how it looked like based on the photos that I saw online. So here's the drawing of the dress and what I could see from the photos, but for the bodice part, it seems to be one piece of fabric and there are a bunch of seams that give it shape. There is a seam in the middle, and right here too, princess seams, and then two side seams. The strap seems to be connected. There's no seam there. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any patterns online that look like this, and I don't think I could draft it myself. I'm not at that level yet. So I will show you what I ended up choosing in a minute. But for the skirt, from what I could see, I think it was 12 panels in the front and in the back. There are some panels that have edge stitching or a top stitch. I'm not sure what to call it, but it seems like they sewed it and they did an edge stitch there. In between, it's just regular flat seam. So 2 pieces were sewn together and pressed open. For me, I don't think I will do any edge stitching or anything. It's a design element that doesn't really call to me, and I don't think it will jeopardize the whole silhouette. So I'm going to show you what I will be doing. So this is the plan for the dress. For the bust part, I decided to use the YMA pattern from Ose Patterns. And it does come as a dress, but I will be drafting the straps myself because I want them to be more on the sides so that it gives a square neckline effect. And for the bodice part itself, I might end up drafting that into princess seams so that it's more fitted. For the circle skirt, I decided to do 6 panels in the front and in the back and to do regular seams. And then for the back of the dress, I'm going to draft this as well, and the skirt is exactly the same. The middle seam will end up being the zipper. But yeah, that is the whole dress, and I think I am ready to get started. I'll probably change things along the way, but so far we're doing pretty good. Let's go ahead and get to sewing the mock-up. So I finished doing the mock-up, and for the front, there is no princess seams, which makes sense. The pattern didn't come like that, and it's a little more loose fit. I'm going to add some princess seams, or at least try to. But for the back, I think it's okay. It's a little too much fabric here. I have to study how to do a lapped seam. I don't know if you need extra fabric. When I make these adjustments, I'm not like criticizing the pattern makers or anything. I'm just adjusting it to my body because everyone's body is different. Like, you want to make those adjustments, and it's okay to change things up if it doesn't fit right. So basically, for the bust, I can't tell if it fits very well. So I'm gonna try it on myself and see how it fits, but I'll do that off camera because I won't be showing everything. But I will do that, and we'll see where to go from there. So I tried on this top off camera and it doesn't fit. There's gaping at the top here, and in the pattern it says that you can wear it without a bra. It's constructed to where it can support you. Not to say that maybe other people might need undergarments, but maybe I need it, maybe I don't. I'll see when I make it, but I'm basically just going with the flow here. To not overwhelm you, I won't put all my alterations on camera. I'm just gonna do that off camera and keep doing fitting adjustments to fix it. I have a feeling I'm gonna do this for the rest of the day, so bye-bye. See y'all next time. Good morning, it's the next day, and yesterday I worked on drafting the pattern and doing alterations, but I still have to do the straps. I want to make sure everything else fits before I move up to that. And then I need to do the skirt, but that will take a long time. I'm just gonna focus on this for now. Let's go ahead and get back to sewing the bodice. I'm gonna do a last mock-up to see if that fits right, and then check in with fitting issues or what my plans are next. My little overalls. I hate overalls when I have to use the restroom because I'm like trying to take it off. It's embarrassing, and then I don't want to get the strap on the toilet. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking. So here's the top. It finally fits better. I haven't tried it on without a bra, like I just put it on my mannequin right now, but I'm so proud of myself. I kind of cried a little watching all the seams line up because I spent all day working on it yesterday. I'm also on my period, so I'm a little emotional. Maybe that's why. I just tried on the pattern and it fits like a glove. I'm so happy. But now I need to work on those straps. I'm going to draft them. Just use my mannequin and eyeball the photo. But be right back. Pattern makers are probably cringing. I'm so sorry. I'm not a professional. I'm just cutting right at the line. And then I'll add the seam allowance later. Can't really see me, but I would love to take a pattern drafting class. It's just, yeah, not in the cards. I was actually gonna sign up for one, but it was like thousands of dollars, and I was like, no thank you. I try to read the books that I have, but they can just be really hard. And sometimes physically doing it and messing with it, it's not the best, but it's what I know how to do. But let me make the pattern, add the seam allowance, and then sew it on. Okay, we're on a roll. So I just finished the strap. I used one layer of fabric, but I turned it in. I added those 3/8 of an inch, but it looks good. This is with that seam allowance. Like, I'm so happy. What's going on? I guess I'm ready. I still want to sew it one more time and try it on, and then see if I'm done basically with the bodice. Then I can move on to the skirt. I'm really nervous about the skirt, but it should go okay. Like, we're already doing all of this. Might as well keep going, right? So it's time to draft the skirt pattern. I made this pattern off screen. It is 1/4 of a circle skirt, and I just used videos online and websites I can link down below. Here I'm measuring the top and bottom of the skirt and dividing it by 3. Then every third, I just mark it on the paper with a pencil. And here's Zoe looking at me. Don't worry, I played with her after I shot this. She's so needy. After I was done, I lined up the ruler to connect the 2 marks that I made at the waistline and the hem, and I drew a line. Then I cut out the panels along the lines, and I added 3/4 of an inch seam allowance to both sides. Good morning. It's been a couple days since I've last sewn. I had to take my machine in to get service because it was giving me error messages, but now it's better. And I also had to look for a lining anyways, so I did that with the time that I had. I like to go to local shops first to look for fabric, and if I can't find it, I go to Joann's. But I couldn't find what I liked, so I ordered from Mood Fabrics online, and I got a cotton voile. I don't know how to say voile, but I have it right here, and it's fairly a good shade. Looking for green fabrics made me realize that there are a lot of different shades of green. Now I don't know if these are actually hunter green or forest green, but whatever. And with the time I had off, I was messing with the mock-up, and I did the straps like 5 more times off camera, but I think it looks good right now. I can show y'all what it looks like. So here's the mock-up, and it took a lot of times, but it's finally come together. And I think it looks really good. When I did this skirt pattern, I realized that all the panels are the same, so I should have just done one panel. And that's what I did. I put the other paper away, but I thought that was a little silly. I could have just done the math for one panel, but we got there at the end of the day either way. I didn't have enough muslin to do the back of the dress, so you know what they say, business in the front, full buttocks in the back. No, but it's the same thing either way. As long as it hits the side seam and I have enough for that seam allowance, it should be the same in the back, and as for the zipper as well. But I've been debating off camera too if I should make these pieces separate, because as I was carrying the linen fabric, it's really heavy. I don't know if the bodice will be able to support that skirt weight on its own. I could add twill tape. I saw that in the book. I'm still thinking about that right now, which is not good because I'm ready to cut the fabric. My idea was to cut the skirt fabric first just to see how heavy it is, if it seems okay. So I think I'm gonna do that and go from there. To prepare the panels to be sewn, first I am stay stitching the waist and the hem. This will prevent stretching on the fabric. After that, I serged the sides of the panels and I was done for the day. Good morning! So yesterday I spent the whole afternoon cutting the fabric for the skirt. I also finished the edges and did a stay stitch on the waist and the bottom so that the fabric doesn't stretch too much. But my goodness, I am sore. My thighs are on fire and it's really hot recently here in Texas, so there's that too. But I finished at least the skirt panels. I still have the bodice, but I'm going to sew those up today. Then I sewed the panels together on the side seam facing right sides together. I finally finished the skirt and it was more and more difficult each panel I sewed on because I don't have a lot of counter space, but I did it. I'm gonna drape it on just to see what it looks like. Oh, it's so pretty. Yay! I'm so happy. For now, I'm going to iron all the seams and get them flat because I haven't done that. I just sewed them all together. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I ironed all the seams open. Then I serged the waistline. This was a little hard to get each seam flat. After that, I cut out the bodice pieces from the linen fabric. I ironed the lining fabric and cut out only the bodice pieces. Good afternoon, not good morning. I usually start my days in the morning, but I just started my classes, so I have that going on now. I will be a little bit more busy and maybe won't finish as quickly, but I really don't care because I take a long time anyways, so it's okay. And sewing is a hobby of mine, so I like to take my time. But yeah, we're back at it. I still have a lot more to do. I basically just cut the bodice pieces yesterday, and I think I sewed the skirt panels too. It was a really long day. But now what I'm going to work on is stabilizing the edges with the stay tape maybe, and watching more videos on what I should do. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. First, I'm cutting out stay tape for the bodice pieces, and I'm placing it along the horizontal lines of the main fabric and lining. I'm not sure if this is necessary, but I did it anyways. And then I cut the stay tape in half because the seam allowance of the strap is 3/8 of an inch. And I pressed the stay tape on the vertical lines for the strap. I serged the center middle of the top part of the cups. And then I serged the curve below. On the instructions it says to cut off the excess fabric, but I ended up serging it instead. I was afraid it would fray. Then I sewed up the top half of the bust right sides together at the center seam. And then I sewed the bottom half of the bust right sides together at the center seam as well. Then I'm ironing these seams open. After that, I'm piecing these two halves together using the marks that I made earlier. and then I'm sewing a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Also, a side note, the creator of this pattern has their own tutorial that is available with the purchase of this pattern. I say this because I do not want to steal revenue or views for this business. I highly suggest, if you're interested in this bust pattern, to purchase it for more detailed instructions. I'm not sponsored or anything. This whole video doesn't have any sponsorships, but I just like to give credit where credit is due, and to support fellow creators and to share my resources in case you'd like to make something that I make, or you like something that I show. Moving on. Next, I moved on to the bodice pieces. This is where the garment becomes my pattern in a way. I'm still using a lot of details from the original pattern, but I drafted the rest of the pieces that I'm showing on screen. To prepare these bodice pieces, I serged the sides off. I did this for each piece. Then it was time to sew the bodice pieces together. I did this using a 3/4 of an inch seam allowance. When I was done, I pressed my seams open. Then I serged the top part of this bodice piece. I also serged the sides of the bust. And it was time to sew them together by using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I started to work on the back bodice pieces. Here's how they will be connected. And for this, I did the same thing, serging the sides off and then sewing them together with a 3/4 of an inch seam allowance. Then I pressed these seams open. After that, I serged the bottom of this bodice piece. Here I decided to use interfacing for the straps to provide more structure and strength. And I only interfaced the lining, not the linen fabric. And then I serged the top of these straps where they will end up resting on my shoulder. And I connected the front and back piece with a straight stitch, following a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I pressed these seams open. I placed the straps right sides facing each other and began to clip them into place. And I sewed a straight stitch along both sides of the strap, and I didn't sew the bottom. Good morning, it's the next day and I just got out of class, but for the garment I have worked on the bodice last night, I believe, and right now I need to work on the straps and connect it together. I finally received the twill tape as well, and if I can get to it, I will work on attaching the skirt to the bodice piece to see how that'll turn out, but we're getting there. I'm still waiting on a zipper online, so I have to wait for that either way. But I have been letting my skirt hang most of this time, and it's been drooping in some edges, so it's pretty good I'm doing that. I've heard you do it for 24 hours, but you know, it's been there for a couple days because I sew very slowly. But now let's go ahead and get started with sewing. Since the top and skirt were done, I sewed them at the waistline, facing right sides together with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. After that, I sewed the waist tape on the seam allowance from the skirt side, since I will be pressing the seam upward towards the bodice. This is the zipper that I got. It was 18 inches, but I shortened it to 15 inches. Then I followed the steps that came with the zipper. It was a metal zipper from the 50s or 60s, I believe. I'm not sure. First step I did was a basting stitch using a 3/4 of an inch seam allowance, and I sewed about 15 1/4 of an inch down. Then I shortened my stitch length to a 2.0. I did a couple back stitches and sewed down the rest of the dress. And I pressed the seam open. I changed my presser foot to a zipper foot and moved my needle to the left. The next step was sewing the placket on the right seam allowance. I'm lining up the metal teeth to the seam and sewing about 2/8 of an inch away from the zipper teeth. On the instructions it says sew it close but not too close. I didn't know how to interpret that, so I just did 2/8 of an inch. Then I turned the metal teeth facing upward. This makes a small fold on the right seam allowance, and I'm pinning it 1/8 of an inch away from the zipper teeth. I'm sewing this down 1/16 of an inch away from the folded edge. Next, I folded the zipper inwards so that the wrong side of the zipper is facing upwards now. To hold this in place as I sew, I'm using a basting stitch. I then sew starting from the bottom right over the zipper teeth, because when I shorten the zipper, I shorten it from the bottom using thread. I used my hand turn wheel for this and was wearing goggles. I've had a needle fly towards my eye before and it wasn't fun, so I wear goggles when I sew through thick seams now, or metal. Then I raise my presser foot and turn the fabric to align the zipper, and then I'm sewing 1/8 of an inch away from the zipper teeth, now on the left side. All that was left to do was to unpick the basting stitches, and I've basically made my first lap zipper. Here I'm showing that I basted the straps into place onto the linen fabric. After this, I pinned the lining over it with right sides facing each other. Then I sewed them together at the neckline using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I understitched the seam allowance to the lining fabric. To finish the lining, I folded it inward while the fabric was inside out and sewed a straight stitch. Then I turned it inside out. I am going to mention now a little later, but the lining that I did is exactly the same as the bodice. I just didn't show it on camera for that reason. The only difference is that I did it with the cotton voile instead. Here I'm lining up the edge of the lining 1/8 of an inch away from the zipper teeth while folding in the lining's seam allowance. To secure it in place, I did a whip stitch. Here I'm leveling out the bottom of the circle skirt. I'm using a yardstick and marked all the way around with pins. I then followed the pins with my scissors. Once I was done, I serged the hem of the dress. I did a basting stitch 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. Then I pressed that 1/4 of an inch upward, and I folded the edge up and made sure it measured 1 1/4 of an inch. I pinned it in place and used the needle to catch the basting stitch so I can ease the fabric in, since the circumference of the very bottom is bigger than 1 1/4 inches above it. Here I'm using my book as reference and decided to attempt a slant hem by hand, and once I was finished hemming the dress, the garment was finally done. Hello, we finally made it to the end of the video and now it's time for the wrap up. I'm so happy that I finally finished this dress. It took forever, and if I were to round about how long I took, I would say maybe like 80 hours, and that's including like the research, all of the sewing stuff. All that preparation takes a lot of time, more than the sewing itself does, but yeah, we made it. And if I knew how to do everything and didn't have to research stuff, still would have taken maybe like 40-50 hours. But I'm bringing up the amount of time I take just to be more realistic, because sewing takes a lot of time, at least for me it does. I know there are more faster sewists out there, but yeah, this is a labor of love. So I'm going to start with reviewing the pieces that I made. For the scarf, I did a 3-thread rolled hem and it came out really beautiful. I love this finishing. It's a really good one for meshy fabrics like this that don't want to behave. But also this pink color looks really good with my skin tone. My friend told me and I was like, stop it some more. But yeah, I see it. One thing you may not notice, so when I made the scarf, all I did was finish the ends just to see how it would look like, and it turned out as a rectangle piece and it looked very rectangular when I put it on, and I wanted it to have more of a pointed end, so I drafted that pattern that you saw earlier, and this is how it turned out. But this is actually 2 scarves. The first piece was maybe 18 inches in width, and the pattern that I made was 10 inches, so I have 2 scarves in here, and I'll show you what I did. So this longer piece is just hooked here. I have a clip to hold it into place. So you see, like, I hooked it in. Let me get the other one out. And there she is. I just tied it, and then I put this in the loop. Pranked ya? Were you fooled? I bet you were. But yeah, when I patterned the scarf, I ended up with this weird skinny piece, and I figured I should just finish it off. Like, I'm not going to use it in the future. But now I have 2 of them. I don't know what to do. I guess it's not long enough on its own to drape over my shoulder the way it is on Elizabeth Taylor. So if I want a short headband, so if I want a short headband, I can just put it on if I'm not feeling extra. Then if I'm feeling extra, I could just hook this piece on and fly in the wind. But there's that. I have options. I'm gonna put it back on because I like it, and I'll be right back. Now I'm gonna review the belt. For the belt, I think it came out really good. I will say it's a little folded, I think because it's been in that package for so long. I washed it and ironed it, but it still looks like this. Either way, it looks really pretty when I actually have it on, like it lays across nicely. And this is the first fabric belt I've made, so I'm still really proud at the way it came out. Like, it's a belt, what could you ask for? And I think it's really sturdy given the fact that it is 90% made by hand, so I'm happy with it. As I was doing the slip stitch by hand, I was looking for something to watch online, and I saw on HBO that they were streaming the Lost Tapes. I haven't heard about it, but I saw Elizabeth Taylor, so I wanted to watch it. It was a documentary styled film, and it was like an interview questionnaire type where they're asking her questions. It followed her life story, and it started from the beginning when she was a child actress. But I hadn't known much about her, but watching this, I learned a lot, and she's gone through so much. I think she's a very compassionate and empathetic person. She was one of the early activists for HIV and AIDS for the LGBTQIA+ community, and I think that was really big. And I know that is like a basic level of compassion to care for someone that's going through something like that, but a lot of people lack that basic level. But yeah, after watching that, it just made me feel more inspired and motivated to finish this project, because it's like recreating one of her looks that I think are pretty iconic. And she also talked about the film Suddenly last summer and how she was going to win an award but didn't. And I can't wait to watch more films with her in it. Like, I know I have Cat on a Hot Tin Roof on my list next. Now it's time to review the dress, and it came out stunning. Like, I'll start with the fitting of the dress. It fits perfectly. I did a lot of mock-ups and toiles to get to this point. I wanted to avoid as many mistakes as I could when I worked on the linen, because I haven't worked with such expensive fabric like that, so I was a little like anxious cutting it up. But making those mock-ups made me feel better, like I knew it was gonna fit nicely. I've never had a dress fit me this good. I can't wait to reuse that pattern again in the future. And I do want to mention again that I used the YMA pattern from Ose Patterns for the bust pieces if you're interested in making it yourself. It was very customizable, I think. Like I was able to make a whole different dress with that. I think the pattern instructions are really detailed and I learned a lot of things, but yeah, I don't have a discount code or I'm not sponsored. I just like to support other businesses as well. As for the fabric, I think it's really beautiful. If I can afford more fabric at that price again, I will definitely go back to that shop. And the color of this dress is really beautiful. I love this green. It's perfect for like the fall, but can also be worn in the summer as well. And the texture of this fabric, the weight and everything, I feel like it makes this dress a little more casual or effortless because, I don't know, it's not like a satin or something. And it does wrinkle a little bit. That's how linen is, but I'm okay with that. I try to iron it here and there, but I just let it do its thing. I think it adds character. I also inserted a lap zipper into this. It was the first time I've done that. I've never worked with metal zippers in the past, and I'm just happy that I was open to using different techniques and taking my time, and I had the time to do so, so I'm grateful for that. But I think that is all I have to say. I feel like I've been talking for a very long time. I'm sorry if you've been watching till the very end, but again, thank you so much for watching and I hope you have a great day. Bye!